gentlemen, how's everyone doing tonight on this Thursday, August the 13th, 2020? Welcome to another metallic episode of Music of Destruction, bringing you the best in metal-related content right here on YouTube. And if you guys missed anything this week, click the I in the upper right corner of the screen and get caught up on all of my latest content. I would really appreciate it. Welcome to Top 15 Thursdays once again here on the channel. And I sincerely hope you have enjoyed all of the content thus far, as I have enjoyed making it for you awesome people. So tonight's video is a request from Stuart Johnson, and if you guys want me to cover anything, please leave it in the comments section. I always appreciate getting video suggestions. I just don't want to cover any slam or deathcore, so please do not bother asking me for that stuff. So Stuart has requested a video on my top 20 essential DSBM albums, and I just want to say thank you to Stuart for this suggestion, because I was actually thinking about doing one like this anyway in the future, but we're doing it tonight, and it's always nice to get that viewer interaction, and I really appreciate it, Stuart, so thank you very much for the request. So let's just get right into this video, shall we? Coming in at number 20, we have Bethlehem with Dark Metal, released in 1994 on Adipocere Records. And I gotta say, this is some of the most grim, depressing black metal I've heard. And this came out way back in 94, before DSBM was a recognized genre. So you could see the way Bethlehem would lay the groundwork for with those dissonant guitar textures, those pain-wailed, anguish-filled vocals, and the harsh production and things like that, and the primitive slow drumming. There was a lot of doom metal elements on this album as well. Dark Metal gets number 20 from Bethlehem. Coming in at number 19, we have Bethlehem with Dictius to Necare, released in 1996 on Redstream, and this one would further that depressive black metal landslide, if you will. There were still some doom metal elements, but this one was a lot more firmly rooted in just grim coldness and isolation. A great album, very depressing textures, dissonant guitar riffs, and a shrill, wailing vocal performance that just has to be heard and experienced. Number 19, Bethlehem, Dictius to Necare. Coming in at number 18, we have Burzum's self-titled, release in 1992 on Death Like Silence Productions. And again, you got that depressing atmosphere, shrill vocals, and that absolutely tin can thin production, necro corpse sound they called it back then in Norway. And this is one of the greatest releases from Burzum on his self-titled, released in 92, and I think it's an amazing record. Got a lot of that depressing atmosphere, so yes, definitely an essential album. Coming in at number 17, we have Burzum with Aske, released in 1993 on Death Like Silence Productions as well. And this one would take what the previous album did and amplify it up to 10. Take those dissonant guitar textures, that wailing, shrill vocal style, and amplify it with a lot more emphasis on atmosphere on this album rather than speed. Yet you could play these albums one after another, and you could see the chronological order and history between these two records. Great release with Aske. Coming in at number 16, we have Judas Iscariot with This Cold Earth Swept Below, released in 1996 on Moribund Records. And Judas Iscariot is in a league all of his own. He didn't just sing about nihilism, he sang about other themes, anti-Christian themes, but there is a lot of nihilistic atmosphere here with those depressive textures and atmospheres overshadowing this record that give it a very cold, desolate, suicidal, depressing feeling. Absolutely fucking amazing release with Judas Iscariot's This Cold Earth Swept Below. Coming in at number 15, we have Judas Iscariot once again with The Dying Light, released in 1997 on Moribund Records as well. And this is another one of those chronological albums that follow suit from the previous release. It's almost like these are chapters in a book, each of these albums, and you could easily listen to this and process it the same way. But what's different about The Dying Light is it had a lot more emphasis on a depressing atmosphere with some faster sections and tempos on the album that gave it that anxious feeling and a lot of anxiety, if you will. Very cold atmospheres going on here. Great album, The Dying Light by Judas Iscariot. Coming in at number 14, we have Forgotten Woods, As the Wolves Gather, released in 1994 on No Colors Records. And more of that depressing black metal atmosphere, but this one would take those aesthetics and extend them even further than the previous artists. However, you can definitely see how they would fall in line with one another, as I know they all drew influence from each other back in the day, but this is a really cold, grim, depressing album with a lot of hatred and a lot of those dissonant textures I talked about. But that is a common theme in DSBM, is it's really focused around hypnotizing you and drawing you into the music. This is an amazing album. Number 14, Forgotten Woods, As the Wolves Gather. Coming in at number 13, we have Forgotten Woods, The Curse of Mankind, and the title says it all. This is a really depressing trip into a psyche that is cold, isolated, and depressed. Lots of dissonance and atmospheric textures going on here. Shrill, ice-cold guitar work, as all of these albums have that. But that depressing, wailing, anguish-filled vocal performance, once again, on full display on this album and all of the aforementioned records. But this is a very different release than a lot of stuff that came out in 1996, in my opinion, and it's a great album. Coming in at number 12, we have Mutilation with Vampires of Black Imperial Blood, released in 95 on Necare Productions. And again, more of what was going on the previous records, but Mutilation took something very unique here and scaled it. And I really like what they did on this album. It's depressing, it's hateful, it's mournful, it's sorrowful, it's isolated, it's cold, and you get a lot of that landscape in your psyche. You get those cold landscapes, a lot of those emotions coming full circle on this record. Dissonant, depressive guitars, ice cold riffing, bad production, and a great shrill, anguished vocal performance. An amazing release from Mutilation. Number 12, Vampires of Black Imperial Blood. Coming in at number 11, we have I Shall Become with Wanderings, released in 1998 independently. And this has that USBM signature sound that took what the aforementioned artist did, but really amplified it and scaled it, made it his own. All of these artists are unique, but they share a very common aesthetic, and that is to create the coldest, most introspective, hateful, isolated music possible. And Wanderings is no slouch in that regard. You got a lot of fuzzy atmospheric guitars, a lot of that wailing vocals, and just depressing atmosphere. Amazing record with I Shall Become's Wanderings. Coming in at number 10, we have I Shall Become's In the Falling Snow, and I do have both of these records, this one on vinyl, released in 2008 on No Colors Records. And this is ice cold, primitive, hateful, dissonant black metal with a lot of emphasis on minimalism here. Most of these albums are very minimal in terms of where they go compositionally, but it's the atmosphere, and this is a hypnotizing, spellbinding record of cold desolation, ice-cold landscapes, misanthropy, and of course that anguish that you would expect from a DSBM release. So great stuff here with I Shall Become's In the Falling Snow. Coming in at number 9, we have a classic with Streed, End of Life, released in 1993 independently, and you can check out my review of it up there in the corner of the screen. This was something very different for 93. It was something that wasn't being done. I know Bethlehem and Streed could easily be credited with creating DSBM, and I did tell you guys I was going to talk about Bethlehem as well, so I am here now. But Streed's End of Life, guys, absolutely defines what DSBM should be, and this is a release that you cannot overlook if you're a fan of this genre. Coming in at number 8, we have Silencer with Death Pierce Me, released in 2001 on Prophecy Productions. And this is a record about insanity, mental breakdown, mental fragility, and downright horror as Natram exposes his mental states all over this record. This is beyond DSBM. This is like something where you can't really comprehend what's going on. His vocals have like a cat-like screaming falsetto that a lot of people didn't like. I think his vocals absolutely illustrate the pain and anguish that he was going through as he recorded this. He was said to have been slicing him up during the recording process of this, and I don't doubt it, because that's what it sounds like. This is a painful release that demands your full attention. Great album. Coming in at number 7, we have Dragar, From Which Hatred Grows, released in 2003 on Tumult Records, and I have this one as well. I did review it. You can check that out in my Metal Albums Reviews playlist. Just go look for it. This is a very schizophrenic, dissonant, hypnotic style of black metal, very chaotic, very noisy, very steeped in abrasion and hatred. Fucking atmosphere here is perfect. It's ice cold, but the production is so raw that it can be difficult to make out everything that's going on here, but it is a clusterfuck of emotions and dissonance and hate. It's an amazing album. Coming in at number 6, we have Dragar once again with Weathering the Curse, released in 2004 on Moribund Records, and this one would kind of take what From Which Hatred Grows and go in a more sorrowful, slower direction. There are some faster songs here, but there's a lot more emphasis on a depressive, suicidal atmosphere on this one that just makes for a very misanthropic record full of emotion, pain, and hatred, and dissonance, and hypnotic textures, incredible album, Draugrs, Weathering the Curse. Coming in at number 5, we have Paya, The Haunted House, released in 2008 on 2 Mule Records, and this was made by a 14-year-old from South Korea when this came out, or it was recorded in 2001. I guess he didn't decide to release it until 2008, but this is an album that literally illustrates somebody going through hell from South Korea, and I can just imagine what South Korea is like, because this album encompasses all of that. There's a very sorrowful anti-war theme going on here, but a lot of hatred and sadness and despair. It is dripping with atmosphere, and you have to experience this album. Paya, The Haunted House, gets number 5. Coming in at number 4, we have Leviathan's The 10th Sublevel of Suicide, released in 2003 on Moribund Records, and this is a suicidal trip into hell, so to speak. And each of the tracks is like a chapter of the different mental states as he breaks down the 10 sublevels of suicide, and this album does it in spades. It's very difficult to explain, man. You just got to hear this album. The guitars, everything about it, so fucking cold, hateful, and isolated and depressed. Absolutely amazing. Coming in at number 3, Leviathan, Tentacles of Horror, released in 2004 on Moribund Records, and this would be a subsequent follow-up to the 10th sublevel of Suicide, but this one is a lot more steeped in just rage and hatred rather than depression and sadness. But this one does still have those elements, but it's very, very chaotic. It's very crazy. It's very intense, but of course dripping with that depressive, suicidal, hateful atmosphere of the aforementioned 10th sublevel of Suicide, but it cranks up that intensity and that heaviness. Great album. Coming in at number 2, we have Zaster's Telepathic with the Deceased, and that is exactly what this album sounds like. This is probably one of the most successful releases when it comes to conveying an atmosphere of nothing but pure fucking despair and hopelessness, and a complete misanthropic viewpoint on humanity, as well as a complete breakdown of someone's mental psyche. This is an amazing album, very dissonant, very depressing, very atmospheric, and it's very chaotic as well. It's absolutely incredible. And finally, coming in at number 1, Zaster's Nocturnal Poisoning. This album epitomizes everything the rest of the albums did and cranks it to like 15 for me. It is absolutely stellar. It's ice cold, it's muddy, it's black, it's raw. It takes you into the fucking abyss of the human psyche, and it never lets up with its suicidal grandeur for 76 fucking minutes. In fact, the title track, Nocturnal Poisoning, is what you hear playing in the background right now. This is the epitome of DSBM, but all of these albums, you could easily put them side by side. This is the collection you need to have if you want to start with these albums. This is what I recommend. Absolutely fucking incredible. So there you guys have it, my top 20 essential DSBM albums. I want to thank Stuart Johnson once again for the request. And hey, if you're new, make sure to subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss anything. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Music of Destruction. Join the Facebook group for all things metal, facebook.com/groups/Music of Destruction. The Seed, episode number 24, The History of Dio Part 3, up there for you great supporters. Thank you for your support. Go to patreon.com/Music of Destruction. Select the $5 tier and you will get access to all of my podcasts for just $1 a month. I'll review an album of your choice. If you want to contribute, I'd greatly appreciate it. This helps keep the channel going, helps me buy lighting, new cameras, new microphones. I do want to upgrade my studio, so that's going to help me pay for all that stuff and keep the channel going, so thank you so much. Also, my good buddy Colton James and myself starting a brand new YouTube channel, Reviews on the Run, doing game and movie reviews, top 15s from all areas of gaming and film, as well as some really cool behind-the-scenes stuff and some documentary stuff we're putting together. So here's a clip, brand new, of what you can expect.
You know what she did? Your canting daughter?
What should be done with him?
I don't know.
I don't think that's true.
I know while you're working in the region where she went missing. I'm still looking, aren't you?
And once again, we are back. I want to give a shout out to Shadows of Death Records, King of Swords, Metal Bends Chronicles, Acid Metal, Backwoods Metal. Make sure you guys check those guys out. Thank you for watching. Make sure to subscribe. We will see you for Metal Album Warfare Fridays. Take care. Stay fucking metal. Cheers.